Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast, brought to you by Joey Sturgis Tones, creating unique audio tools for musicians and producers everywhere. Unleash your creativity with Joey Sturgis Tones. Visit joeysturgistones.com for more info. And now your hosts, Joey Sturgis, Joe Lenasek, and Eyal Levi.
Welcome to the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast. I am Eyal Levi, and with me is special guest Diego Farias from Volumes. He's a producer out of Los Angeles, and you know him for working with bands like Veil of Maya, Chelsea Grin, Animals as Leaders, Structure, Stray from the Path, Bermuda, and of course, all the Volumes albums. But he also makes beats and works on all kinds of different genres of music, and was even the recipient of 2 Latin Grammy Awards for his work with Juan Gabriel, including Album of the Year, which is the highest honor you can get. Comes from a musical family, son of Gustavo Farias, which is a very, very accomplished Latin music producer. I mean, pretty cool background you've got there, man. And thanks for being with us.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And nice that we finally could meet up and do this, because we've been trying for over a month.
Yeah, it was tough. I was on the road and things just, I'm glad it finally happened.
Likewise. And sorry I missed you at NAMM last week. Before we started recording, Diego was telling me that he went to NAMM, but it tired him the fuck out. And I feel you on that, because, man, I feel like NAMM takes so much energy out of me. I think it's not just the walking, you have to be constantly on, talking to people nonstop for hours and hours, plus you're surrounded by so much noise. It's like a giant Guitar Center on steroids, with drums going at all times and from all directions.
Oh yeah, man. When I got back home, I just went one day, but when I got back, I was beat. I went straight to bed, and I even felt it the next day, just from, I don't know, man, just you exert a lot of energy for sure.
Well, this was my first year going as, I guess, an exhibitor, because I work with JST, and we had a booth. And I wasn't tied to the booth or anything, but I still had to be there part of the time. And man, it's fucking intense, because I guess when I would go as a musician, I always had the option of hiding. If I felt like hiding, I could just go back to my hotel.
Yeah.
But not this time. So do you feel like going is worth it for you, though, at this point? Or was it ever worth it for you?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really cool to go check out. I'm really, I kind of spend most of my time in the software section. You know, it's cool to see all these plugin companies come and they showcase like what they're about to release this next year, and sometimes you get to use and hear plugins that aren't even out yet, and software that isn't even out yet. And then, cool people come and give speeches. It's cool to come watch and learn. It helps you stay intact with what's up and coming this year, and it's just, for us nerds, us nerdy musicians, we get a kick out of it.
I guess the talk now is what Slate just announced. Did you see that?
I saw some of it. Yeah, it's like a virtual recording studio.
Yeah, it looks pretty ridiculous. That I feel like that was like the main talk of, I guess, everyone that I know. That was the number one thing that they were talking about, was the virtual recording studio. It
seemed interesting. I talked to the dudes over at Slave for a little bit. I guess they have like an interface coming out, and it works good with their virtual recording mic. The mic they put out that models like every other mic, and it's like pretty accurate. It's crazy. I don't know how they did that, but I'm sure you sound like you know more of it than I do.
No, I'm actually trying to get the info out of you, because I didn't get a chance to actually go to the Slate booth. So tell me if I'm right. So this thing works with their microphone, and probably models a bunch of preamps too, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it models preamps. I'm assuming it does, but I guess it's the first time Slate's releasing an interface. I guess it's synchronized with the microphone they released, the virtual microphone. It models like, it's like a microphone you buy, and you can model like a U87, U47, a whole bunch of mics. And like, I remember a couple years ago I went to NAMM, and they had like a real Fet U47 next to the Slate one, and they had them together, and he would and like Steven Slate was recording audio into them, and then he'd play it back, and you couldn't tell the difference. It was scary good.
And I love that technology is at that point now. Like, I remember when, I guess, the first wave of modeling stuff came out, and it was such a disaster. Like, with the original pod, or there was actually Antares, I believe. They make autotune. They first made a microphone modeling software where it was supposed to do that, like in 2005 or something, but it was terrible, man. It was fucking awful. And so I just remember for the longest time, all this modeling stuff was just a joke. And then I got a Kemper in like 2012 or something, like right before it was released. And I was like, wow, yeah, this is the future. Like, it's actually good now.
I used Kemper on our new record, and I was blown away by. It's crazy how fast you can get shit to sound good on it, and that's what kind of sold it to me, because I've been an XFX user for a while now, and I just with XFX I have to spend a lot of time dialing in tones, and I felt like with the Kemper we just kind of we downloaded some profiles and then tweaked them a little bit, and within like 15-20 minutes we had like a recordable tone that we could actually, some of it might have even made it to like the final mixes,
So you didn't actually even model an amp, you just downloaded tones?
No, yeah, we just downloaded profiles online.
Do you remember which ones? Because I know the audience is going to be curious about that.
I don't remember the exact names, but they were 5150 modelers. We downloaded a bunch of PV stuff for the heavy tones. I think it was Brown Face for some of the clean tones. But nice. Actually, a lot of the leads we ended up using Guitar Rig 5. Just because, like, I feel like Guitar Rig 5, the way it sounds, it kind of sits, for lead work, it kind of sits nice in mixes. And it's cool because it has all the built-in delays and effects. And to have that all in a plugin is just kind of like, I don't know, it's better for you. It's easier for my workflow.
I've never used Guitar Rig 5, but...
Oh, really?
The guys, yeah, but it's just for some reason, there's so many different amp sims out there. That's just the one that I've never used.
No, it's great. It's great. I mean, I know Joey just released a new one. I love that one too. I just got it.
The Jason Richardson Toneforge?
Oh, I haven't gotten that one yet, but I do have the Ben Bruce, and then I think I have the OG Toneforge.
So, do you have Guilty Pleasure?
No, I don't. Is that the original? Menace is the one I have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, but Guilty Pleasure is different. I'll make sure you get that and the Jason Richardson one.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll send you that after this podcast.
Yeah, it was fun. I was just talking to Jason like earlier today. I hit him up. I had some guitar questions for him.
Like playing questions?
Nah, just some guitar spec questions, because he knows everything about Ernie Balls. And he made me get an Ernie Ball like back in the day, like 4 years ago. We were on the first tour he did with Chelsea Grin, and on that tour he convinced me to get an Ernie Ball. He's like, nah, because I was playing Schecter at the time, and he made me buy one. And it's funny because I'm with Ibanez right now, but I tracked a lot of the heavier stuff on the Ibanez, but a lot of the lighter stuff, and there's a lot lighter stuff, and a lot of the solo work on our new record, it's all done with an Ernie Ball.
I think that they make great guitars, great strings, great basses. And we're going to hang out with Jason this coming weekend for Nail the Mix. And
really?
Yeah, because Taylor Larson's doing it, and we're going to Maryland to hang out with Taylor, but Jason lives there too, so he'll be with us. I want to try one of his guitars. I haven't gotten the chance. So tell me more about Guitar Rig 5, though, because it's one of those plugins that either guys I really respect use it, or guys that I know totally suck use it. There's no in between.
I mean, I was an OG man. I've been on Guitar Rig for a minute now. The first Volumes EP, The Concept of Dreaming, that's actually all. That was 100% Guitar Rig 3, and then for Via we used GTR and Guitar Rig 3, and we kind of blended that. And then for No Sleep, I used XFX.
Dude, you're the second guy to tell me on this podcast that they use GTR. The other guy was Michael Keane.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great for tracking demos. It's low latency. It does have like a sharp sound to it, like a high mid thing that kind of bugs me sometimes. But honestly, like what I was for a while on my template, my go-to template for writing for Volumes or for whatever band, I had Guitar Rig. I know it was GTR. And I would go to Shredder and I'd keep everything at 12 o'clock. And then I put the Pro Tools gate expander, and on that expander there's a preset called Noisy Instrument. And you click that, lower the threshold just a little bit. And then I'd run it through like a plug-in EQ, like a Waves Renaissance EQ 6. I cut off some low end and like boost like 1 or 2K, a couple dB, and then I just run the GTR Shredder preset on 12 o'clock, and it sounded great. And we honestly, I think we put out one of the volumes, the Vale Pre-Pro, which some people think it sounds better than the final mix. That's just straight GTR on Shredder with like literally at everything at 12 o'clock. I think I might have boosted tweaked the treble knob a little bit, but that was cool. But back to your question with GTR, I love GTR. I think it's I don't know if it could compete with the Kemper for final mixes, but if you're just on the go, you know, and you have a laptop with you or whatever, it's a great portable plugin that gets the job done. Like there's an amp modeler on Guitar Rig 5. I think it's the Ultrasonic, and that's like I use that a lot. And then it has this like psychic delay, and it's like a stereo delay, and it sounds really nice. I love it for leads. The notes resonate really well. That's what I like about Guitar Rig 5, or all the guitar rigs. The notes you play, even when you have a heavy tone, they resonate well, and you can hear the notes. And you know, so you could still be heavy, but it keeps it musical, and it allows you to keep that balance where, you know, it's heavy, but you know, you're playing notes at the same time, so you want them to be heard.
So there's a high ratio of note to, I guess, distortion.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what to call that, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Just a lot of note in the tone.
Yeah, it's something I find with plug-in guitar amps. Like, the notes resonate well, but especially in Guitar Rig 5.
I think it's because with amp sims, the entire tone is built off of a DI, right? Like, it's not a microphone picking up air. It's actually the pure guitar signal. So I feel like sometimes with amp sims even, there's so much note in there that you can sometimes hear the clean, like you can hear the DI through the amp sim even. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I need to EQ that out. But like once you EQ that out, you have like the perfect amount of note with distorted tone.
It's cool. That's like the advantage of using a guitar sim. And it's, you know, in my head, obviously over the years I've gone back and forth, you know, because a lot of for the Volumes records on the final mixes for everything that we've released other than No Sleep and I guess Feels Good, our latest single, it's all been guitar simulators. I definitely back them. They're a good route. But now, I mean, honestly, nowadays with Kemper, you know, now you have Kemper and Axe Effects, like, you know, you can't really fuck with those.
No, not really. I mean, so with my Kemper, most of the tones that I used were actually modeled from amps. And I guess when it first came out, lots of guys didn't trust that it would sound good. And I was working at a studio called Audio Hammer, and we had a lot of older school death metal bands coming through and bands that were like amp purists, and we would do these A/Bs with them, like this is the model tone, this is the 5150, guess which one is which. And they would typically guess it wrong because we could get the Kemper to sound better than the amp often.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, man. I've had the same results with Kemper. It's crazy.
And you can use it on the road.
Yeah, you could take it on the road with you. And there's something about the Kemper that even the Axe Effects doesn't have, like the artifact, like something about like your tone, like the artifacts. It has the same artifacts you would hear on a real amp. You know, if you're miking it up, it's like not. It's crazy what they did. I don't know how they do it, but I definitely back Kemper 100%, especially for studio. You know, because in the studio it's kind of like you're putting everything under a magnifying glass. You know, people are gonna be hearing it through their car stereos and headphones and like isolated environments, so it's a huge advantage.
It's the only one of the amp sims that I know of where the guitar amp purists that I've had to work with will sit down and plug in and be like, wow, it feels like an amp.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'll even go as far as to say that I feel like even Axe Effects can't reproduce that like as well as Kemper, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting what you said about Axe Effects, that you feel like there's so much more tweaking involved. Me and Andrew Wade were talking about this at some point, that it feels like with Axe Effects you can sit there for 2 hours and just like tweak and tweak and tweak, and it doesn't necessarily get better, it just gets different.
Yeah,
and it's annoying.
I couldn't agree more, for sure.
It pisses me off because it's like, what am I doing? Like, I feel like a guitar tone, you should be able to get it within 15 to 30 minutes.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and if you don't get it that quickly, something's wrong. Like maybe you're using the wrong guitar, or you picked the wrong amp, or the wrong pickups, or the wrong player. You know, just something's wrong. And unless if you're using an Axe Effects, and then it might take you 2 hours or 3 hours.
Also, what happens is if you're sitting there dialing in tones, man, after 30, 45 minutes, like, your judgment is impaired.
Yes.
You know, it's like you don't have that energy. You're not looking, like, it kind of gets washed away after 45 minutes of just tone, you know, searching or whatever. But I've done some gnarly sessions with Axe Effects, man. Like, I remember for No Sleep, I was like, I did like a couple days straight where I was like 8 hours a day. Just the whole day, all I did was just dial in tones and work on the same patch. And it's just, that's why when I started using Kemper and we got a tone in 20 minutes, I was like, holy shit, no, yeah, like, this is my jam right here. But I mean, Axe Effects is cool. It's really cool for live, you know, because once you dial in that tone, it's great that it works with MIDI. So I have all my MIDI patch changes programmed on the computer, and I have that hooked up to my Axe Effects, so I don't even have to do anything. They just change for me, and it's really great with effects. You get stereo effects, you get really nice reverbs. You can think like a producer, like an engineer, the way you would mix with your Axe Effects. So it's cool. It's like a computer for the guitar. So it's cool.
I do love its effects, I will say that. And I do love its Axe Edit. That program is fucking sick.
Oh,
and
yeah, for sure.
I wish that Kemper had something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of, they just have the profiler, huh?
And I haven't seen anything quite on par with Axe Edit. I think if you're a creative person and you want to, like, okay, so I feel like the kinds of tones that we're talking about being tough to make on the Axe Effects are like your straight ahead rhythm heavy tones. Those are the ones that I have a hard time with. But when it comes to like making crazy sounds or something, or cleans or whatever, I feel like you can get really creative shit with the Axe Effects if you use Axe Edit. Like if a creative person can really have a good time with it. But when it comes to the standard tones, like your meat and potatoes, like the tones that are going to be like 80% of your guitar tones on the album, I'd rather not use an Axe Effects.
No, for sure. That's where Kemper really, in my opinion, based on my experience, that's where it really excels, you know. And that's kind of like, I'm a simple guy, man. I don't really like, I'm not too crazy with effects. I love delays, I love reverbs, I love compression, but all in all, like, you can do a lot of that post, you know. And if your meat and potatoes, the way you said it, isn't like set, or it's not right, it's kind of like everything else is secondary to that. So
let's switch gears. I want to talk a little bit about how you balance things in your life, because you work on a bunch of different things. I mean, you've got a band, which is a real band, not just like some local band. Like, you're in a band that's, you know, one of the well-known bands in the genre.
You tour a lot.
Tour a lot, yeah, active. But you've also got a production career, and lots of times people who are in heavy bands also produce heavy bands, which you do, but at the same time you have a whole other career working on hip-hop or Latin music. And it's so hard for metal guys to get work outside of metal, but it seems like that's just what you do. How do you balance all that? That's a ton of shit.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like initially, man, I'm kind of like an ADD person in a good way. I think it's like my mind works in kind of like blocks. I do play in a metal band, and we are established, and I've toured with the band for the last 5-6 years, and it's been a hell of a ride to get it built up. But growing up in my family, I was always around a lot of different styles of music, and my base was always recording and production. And from an early age, I never wanted to be like limited to one genre or one thing. And even when Volumes was first taking off, back then I was still like, even though I was producing Volumes and recording other bands, I was still like, I had I would record hip hop, or I would start pop projects with like singers in my area, or like anyone I knew. I've always been working with people that like music, and from working with other people, I learn a lot, so it's kind of just always been a thing. And it's cool that 5-6 years down the road, like it's all kind of paid off, and it's just kind of like things take time to build, and some things kind of blow up faster than others, and I think Volumes just kind of got out there. And then later on, now that my other stuff is kind of gotten shed some light, people are starting to like realize, oh shit, this guy also does other stuff. So, but balancing it all, it's a huge challenge, because I'm always going on tour, and it's always like things are always hectic. But it's kind of like as soon as I get back from tour, I just focus and force myself to focus on my other projects and balancing things out, scheduling things out the right way. But I think, dude, at the end of the day, it all comes down to my passion for music, man. I just love doing this shit. So like when I wake up, whether it's metal, hip hop, pop, or whatever, like I'm stoked to do it, And at the end of the day, if you go on tour for 2 months and you're at home for 2-3 months, like, if you wake up and work on music every day, that's 2-3 months like worth of work, and eventually through the years, like, you end up allotting a lot of time to different things. Like the last year, I started working with this rapper Puya, and he kind of like gave me a shot at like making beats for him, and that was really cool, man. And honestly, having the studio and just knowing my way with engineering, and just being proficiently trained at engineering and producing, like knowing my way with software and listening to a lot of different types of music. Like I don't really listen to metal, I kind of get my metal fix just from writing Volumes and touring, but obviously when I first started the band, I was like a huge, like that was like mostly what I listened to. But even before I even got into metal, I was listening to a lot of hip hop, a lot of like rock.
So would you say that Volumes has just always been one piece of the pie, like I guess just one piece of all these different things that you do, and it, like you said, it just happened to take off first, so people know you for it, but you've always done a ton of stuff? Yeah,
I've always been deeply passionate about hip hop, deeply passionate about, honestly, pop. And like I said, honestly, I learned a lot from working with other people. So, when I was a kid growing up in high school and I learned how to record, I started recording bands, and then I'd just find other people that were cool at music that, through school or through friends or local musicians, and I would just work with them, and I learned a lot just from sitting in the studio, seeing the way people approach music. Also, always putting myself in a situation to where I'm forced to like get better, like it's beneficial to surround yourself with people who keep you on your toes, who are just as good, if not better than you.
Dude, that's I kind of live my life by that. When I was in a band, I tried to be the worst musician in the band, and it worked for us. We got signed and everything, and I feel like all of that is due to I put together a fucking awesome band, because the goal was basically, if I'm better than you, you don't belong in this band, because I'm not that good at guitar, in my opinion. And with my business now, I kind of feel the same way. I want to be the dumbest dude in the room with my partners, and I'm always blown away by how smart they are. And I feel like
it's a good position to be in, because
it is.
You're always learning, and it's kind of like the school of life. If I absorb so much from working with other people, man, it's crazy. Like, that's kind of like been my school. And obviously growing up with my father, has all these, he does a lot of stuff, and he gave me a good peace of mind growing up. Like when I first picked up a guitar and I was first starting to play, he'd tell me, real musicians play to a click, practice to a click, learn your songs, everything you're playing, like have a tempo, like learn how to keep it right. But even with saying that, I took what he would tell me, and obviously everyone's their own kind of like person, and he was never like really into metal. I kind of got, honestly, my big brother Gus, who's in Volumes, the singer, he kind of got me into metal, so I have to thank him for that.
So do you think that growing up with a dad who's as accomplished as your dad is, that pushed you, or do you think it's more just you were around it, so you got into it? And the reason I'm asking is because my dad's a pretty well-known orchestral conductor, and so I grew up in that environment, just around lots of classical soloists, always going to concerts, traveling for concerts, music all the time. And even though it was imposed on me some, I just gravitated towards it. I wanted to do it.
100%, man. It was. I feel like I'm so lucky because I was born into this environment where, I had access to a recording studio and people with the knowledge of music. But aside from that, I got obsessed with music. Like regardless of that, whether I would have had that or not, I got obsessed with music at an early age. So I just took everything I could around me and learned as much as I could, and I remember as a kid, by the time I was 12, I was like freaking out at the fact that I could be around a recording studio. So by the time I was 12, 13, I was already using Pro Tools and going to the studio and bugging the engineer, asking just annoying the shit out of him, asking every single little tiny question, kind of getting in the way of things. That definitely helped me out. So I'd say it's definitely both. I also had friends growing up that their families might have not been musical, but their love for music and their passion drove them to learn everything. Because you could have all this stuff around you, but if you're not motivated and you're not driven to learn, to really struggle and push yourself like as hard as your peers or the people that you want to be like, push themselves like personally, you won't get there,
There's definitely, I guess, an advantage to being born into it.
Oh, 100%.
But it doesn't guarantee you anything.
It doesn't guarantee you anything. You still have to learn and struggle, but having that information readily accessible is a huge major key to learning, but if you don't have it accessible to you as easy as people like you or I did, you have the internet nowadays, you could go to school, and you got to just really try, man, and really think for yourself. And no one's ever gonna lay anything out, like no one's ever gonna hand you anything. You kind of have to, but you have to go out there and get it. No one's gonna, and then even if you do accomplish it, people are gonna try to there's gonna be like situations and rocks along the road, however you want to say it. There's just gonna be, you gotta learn from your failures. No one's perfect, everyone's gonna fuck up at some point with any little things, small things. It's how you learn from your failures, I think, allow you to succeed.
Everybody gets knocked down. I think that there's definitely a misconception about whether things can get handed to you in music. I don't think they can, because at the end of the day, you're only as good as, like, if you're a mixer, you're as good as your last mix, and it doesn't matter who your dad is. What matters is the mix good. If you're a guitarist, you're only as good as your guitar playing, and nothing but what you put into your guitar playing is going to make you a better guitar player. And that's what you get judged on. So
no one can hand you talent. No one can hand you like you have to just work for it, man. And there's no way around it.
So it's interesting to me that like some of the things that your dad gave you are very, very practical. That's some of what my dad gave me too. Like I remember when I was in high school bands, he would come watch our show and be like, you need to not worry about this band and just worry about getting good at your own personal level, because I guarantee you that none of these guys are going to be making music when they're adults. And I'd get so mad at him and be like, but we're going to make it. He'd be like, no, you just need to worry about your own level.
Yo, that's so reminiscent to what I feel like my dad would tell me as a kid.
They're right.
Yeah, dude.
The other one was when my band, I thought my band was good. And I'd say, my band, we're better than all the other bands we play with. And he'd be like, why do you compare yourself to the worst bands? What do you sound like compared to the best bands? And then I'd be like, now I want to kill myself.
No, exactly. Yeah, man. It's like, my dad would always tell me, higher your standards. Like, there's a big world out there. There's a lot of different music out there. And, going back to the thing where you told me how I balance everything, growing up. Like, my dad always told me, he's like, yo, metal's just, or not even metal, but just, don't limit yourself to one genre, Diego. There's a huge world of music out there. You should go to music school. You should, go do this, go do that, try doing this. And that for sure had a huge influence on me, because from a kid, even though I had this whole side of me that was like, yo, all I want to do is, I mean, at one point, in high school, I was like, all I want to do is metal. This is what I love. Like, this is, like, I got it down, like it's fucking, or not even I got it down, but I'm so passionate about this and I love it. Even then I had, I'm really thankful I had my father to tell me, like, hey, there's other stuff out there. So in the back of my head, I'd always be like, fuck, well, I should also try learning other music that I love, And that's the thing for me, like, maybe I kind of always stuck to what I was really passionate about. And, thankfully I was really passionate about production. So that's, aside from playing guitar, like, production and engineering was always a huge passion of mine. So getting in the car and listening to the radio, when you listen to radio songs, like, yo, the production and engineering on that that's like top level, like top notch. So even as a kid, in high school, I could relate to loving, like, radio music, or, like, or stuff I heard on the radio, like, or I used to take drum lessons and guitar lessons, so I'd always look up, like, I was a huge drummer fan, like, look up videos of Vinny Colaiuta, Dave Weckl, Steve Gadd, guitar players on YouTube, like Chris Broderick.
You just absorb it all like a sponge.
Yeah, man, and I was just always, like, into a lot of different shit, and I'd kind of, like, always jump in from different worlds. I'd be like, if I was, like, a drummer, what would be my idols, if I was only a drummer, or I guess the drummer inside of me always looked at these drummers as idols, and then the guitar player inside of me always looked at these guitar players as idols, and then the producer inside of me always looked at these Dr. Luke, Max Martin, like Timbaland, like all these crazy cats. Like, they've just always been on my radar, and it's I just love it all, man.
So it sounds like you get obsessed with different things. Like, say you get obsessed with drummers, do you, like, then just go and find drummers for, like, a period of time, like maybe like a week or a night or a month, just spend all your free time on it?
Yeah, I used to take drum lessons, and my drum teacher this guy named Emerson Wall, great guy, we used to, like, just sit in his room, and he would just teach me about all these great drummers, and we just watch videos. And I would just be so amazed. And then as soon as the video was done, he would, like, break down something they were doing and be like, all right, this is the exercise, like the paradiddle that they were doing or whatever. And it would just be so cool for me. It was so much fun. I was like a little kid in a toy store.
One thing that I've always thought is that modern producers need to be musicians. And back in the day, like in the analog days, there were engineers that were just engineers, because there was a lot more actual technical science to it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, like in the original days, people wore fucking lab coats, but that's all changed. I mean, there is technical science to it, but I think that the job of a producer engineer now is a lot more intermingled with actual musicianship. And I feel like one thing that producers should do is learn various instruments. And I did the same thing. I took voice lessons, I took drum lessons. Guitar is my main instrument, but I also took bass lessons, orchestration lessons. And I think that guys who want to get good at this should do that too, because it will open up your understanding of music in a way that nothing else will.
Oh, 100%. Yo, and something, man, piano is an instrument, like...
Oh, yeah. Piano, that one too.
Yeah, I used to take piano lessons, and I never picked it up like I did the guitar, but now that I'm, like, heavy into other styles of music where my guitar is not the main instrument, like, a piano is such a valuable asset to arranging and music production and just writing songs. I mean, if you just take a look at the instrument, like the way it's laid out, it makes more sense. It's easier for the human brain to grasp like notes on a piano than it is on a guitar, where it's just kind of like you have the same note 5 different, in the same tonal range, in the same octave, like 5 different places on the guitar. And with a piano, it's like kind of like the same, like it's just a group of 12 notes completely repeated, and it's like the pattern is the same. I don't know, but what I'm saying is it's kind of like a lot of the music you hear on the radio, a lot of other styles, a lot of music is written on piano, and the way chord music theory was like written, I'm pretty sure like it makes most sense on a piano, or it makes more sense on a piano to me than it does on a guitar. So
guitar's a very counterintuitive instrument. Actually, it's not a good instrument for writing. I mean, it's good for writing metal and stuff like that, but for actually writing music that doesn't necessarily involve a guitar 100% of the time, it's a really shitty instrument.
Yo, honestly, I didn't want to say that, but like honestly, I agree with you. Like it kind of doesn't make sense. It's kind of like retarded if you think about things theoretically. Like a major chord is just, you have to like look at the guitar and count frets, whereas a piano major chord, it's like, all right, boom, like 3,
Yeah, exactly. The way that the chords lay out on a guitar, you have to get into all kinds of weird chord shapes just to have normal chords.
Yes.
It's not designed for ease of use, basically. Also, notes don't sustain, so it's hard to write like a good melody, like a good simple melody with long notes on the guitar, because the lack of sustain on a guitar, the way that, say, a voice would have, it's hard to mimic that.
And also, if you think about it, man, on a piano, you can hit 10 notes at the same time. You have 10 fingers.
Yep.
So with a guitar, you have 6 notes. So,
yeah.
You're within, just with that, you're kind of limited. So with that being said, like sometimes restrictions kind of allow creativity. I know piano players like that, kind of like my buddy Roger, who I work with a lot. He's a really great piano player, and he's like classically trained, and I had him come in and co-write on Volumes' album, and we ended up doing, I think, 1 or 2 songs on the album. And it was cool because he bought like this little shitty like Casio at Toys R Us, like a $40 little Casio. And he liked it because it limited the notes he could play, and that within itself, like, we were able to capture some really cool ideas, like, stuff we didn't even end up using for Volumes, but we were just recording like really cool like stuff, and it's cool to see how limiting yourself in a way could kind of spawn a creative result.
Well, I think limiting yourself is very similar to the concept that we actually teach in production and mixing of committing to sounds quickly. It's a similar sort of effect that it has on the brain, because when you know that you're going to commit to a tone, you actually are forced to make it as good as you can right then and there, and then move on.
And that's the best way to work, bro. I've honestly, after like my whole life of working on music and producing, like I can definitely say it's the best way to work. And I'll let you finish.
Oh, so I was just going to say that, but that imposes a limitation. And I agree, it is the best way to work. And with writing, too, one of the hardest things that I think people have with writing is a blank DAW or a blank page, like how to start something. And by imposing limitations, it's a lot easier to not only start, but commit to something and feel good about it.
Yeah. One thing I would say, going back to the engineering and production aspect, the last couple years I've been really honing in on doing vocals, and I've gotten the opportunity to track, like, somehow end up in some really, like, cool situations. Like, last year, I recorded this song, Broccoli, for this artist, Drum, and, we kind of recorded it in like 20 minutes.
Nice.
And like he released a song on SoundCloud, and dude, it blew up, and it's all on the radio, just went double platinum, and it just got nominated for a Grammy. And I would have never expected like that to happen. We were kind of like, it was very nonchalant. He improvised the hook on the spot. And with that being said, like a lot of with the engineering of everything, doing those sessions, I learned, because the sessions were being done at a studio in Hollywood. And I think it was this dude named Yeti, and he was like all these cats are like really dope, like really good engineers, and So when I opened up the sessions to kind of work on the songs, like I noticed they were only using like 1 or 2 plugins, and the mixes sounded really good. I was like, damn, these mixes sound better than mine. I'm using like 5, 10, plugins to get the same effect. And that's when that kind of helped me learn, like, oh shit, like, just opening up one EQ and opening up one compressor and knowing what the hell you're doing with that compressor and the EQ and just getting it to sound like good on the spot. It's a major key to producing a good final product and just in doing your job right as an engineer and getting shit to sound like good quick.
Absolutely. I definitely think that there's a lot to that. And in Nail the Mix, we've now had a lot of guest mixers on, and it's amazing how, and Kyle Black, who's worked with you guys, we had him on, and he's the perfect example of being simplistic and making things sound amazing.
Yo, that guy is an amazing ear, man. He's been mixing. I had him mix Volumes' album. And yeah, I'll let you continue. He's a great mixer, great guy.
Well, I actually wanted to talk about that a little bit, because the thing that blew me away was just how simple his mixes were, but how incredible they sounded. Like when he started dialing in drums on the State Champs on Nail the Mix, he first of all, he worked very, very quickly, and he didn't have like chains and chains and chains of plugins. He was very, very simple with what he used, but it was very, very specific, and it made it sound great. And I think that there's a lot to that you know exactly what the tool does and what the source tone needs and how you're going to use that tool on that source tone for the best result. It's not guesswork. Like, you know exactly what you're going for.
Yeah, man. Knowing how to use a compressor and knowing what, like, having a good ear, like listening carefully to stuff and, tackling problem frequencies. And honestly, what I like doing a lot of subtractive EQing. That's what I've been doing a lot. But just knowing how to use your tools, and like when we were talking about limiting yourself, knowing how to use these tools, compression, EQ properly, it really is a major key, man, to getting a good mix, to being successful as a producer, to just doing your job right.
Tell me a little more about working with Kyle, actually. I'm curious about that, because it's interesting to me that he worked with you guys, because he's not known for that kind of stuff.
Well, I've done all the Volumes mixes in the past, and this time around, me and Brandon Paddock produce all Volumes and stuff. We'll produce the last record, and we were planning on mixing it ourselves, and but Volumes took a long time on this album because I really wanted to. Well, we went through a vocalist change, but aside from that, I really wanted to. We wrote like 25 songs and only used like the 10 best ones. And I really wanted to make sure with this album that all the songs were great and there's no like cookie cutter shit, Mm-hmm. So with that being said, after a year and a half of hammering these songs out, I felt like we were kind of burnt out on it, and like I listened back to our mixes and like I liked stuff about them, but they just weren't like, I felt like we had just listened to the songs way too much. And the product was kind of like 75% there, like sonically, but it's still, or maybe 80%. I give us a good 80%, but like, the last 20% to get that the last kind of like push on the mixes, like I just thought it would be good to give it to someone else. So I was thinking about it, but that being said, I was on my way to Brandon's one day, and I was listening to State Champs, and I was like, damn, this record sounds great. This record sounds amazing. Like, I wonder who did this. And then I pull up to Brandon's, and we start working, and he's like, oh, hey, my buddy wants to grab sushi, my buddy Kyle. I'm like, cool. And on the way there, Brandon told me, he's like, oh yeah, he did State Champs, and I think he worked on some of the Pierce Surveil stuff back in the day. And I was like, yo, for real, Brandon? I was just listening to those mixes on the way to on the way to your studio, and as I was listening to the mixes, I was like, damn, it'd be cool to get whoever mixed this State Champs record to work on Volumes. Like, I bet he could get, like, the way I picture these songs sounding final in my head, like, I bet whoever did this to State Champs could get them to sound right, complete the vision. Mm-hmm. And so we met up with him, and then he ended up coming over to Brandon's studio later that night, and he heard the record, he heard the songs, and he really liked them, and we were kind of on like a time crunch, and so we needed help. We were like, yo, can you, at least mix one song so we could get it out, and have it be the single. and he was down, man, and he did a test mix, and it sounded incredible, and he like made the final mixes sound the way I envisioned them sounding. So I really applaud him for that, because like, you know, we're not like me and Brandon like being producers and building this work of art for the last year and a half, and us being so technical ourselves, and like being in charge of finalizing so many other mixes for other people and for ourselves. Like we have a very like specific vision, you know, and Kyle was just able to come in and boss out and get the songs to where they needed to be. But yeah, working at his studio, he had a really cool setup. He's using a lot of analog gear. He was running through a summing bus, and it all just synchronized pretty well.
When's it coming out?
Album should be out within the next couple months. It's pretty much done. I actually have to send Kyle some files today for him to like wrap up the album and send off to mastering next week.
Nice. He played me some of it when he was at my place for Nail the Mix.
Oh, for real?
I made him. I forced him to. I put a gun to his head. It sounds cool, incredible.
I'm happy he showed you, man. And I gotta see the Nail the Mix for State Champs, cause like, I love that mix, man.
Oh, I'll after this podcast is over, I'll give you access to it for sure.
Please do. Yeah, man, Kyle's incredible. That album is just like blows me away, and what he did with this new Volumes album is just so sick.
Yeah, I agree. Because he played it for me before I knew I knew he was good, and of course we don't have chumps on Nail the Mix, so like it wasn't like I knew he was good, of course, and State Champ sounded great, and so we had him there, but I didn't know what a badass he was yet until. Like, because I hadn't watched him mix, and I was honestly a little curious to hear what it sounded like with him doing metal, and it sounded great.
Yeah, man.
And it sounds unique, too. That's what I like about it. It definitely sounds unique, but it also has this pop kind of polish in the vocals.
That's what I wanted, you know? I mean, Brandon's like a really poppy producer, too. Like, I think he did some stuff with Avril Lavigne, and he used to work for John Feldman. So the record had that edge to it, and he was able to keep that and keep it fortified, but blend it in with all these heavy tones and like rocky sound, like, so we ended up with like a really, like, the record's really, it gets really heavy, but it's like when it needs to be like poppy, it's like it's mixed the way like a radio song would be mixed.
Like, I feel like I'm hearing like a modern Linkin Park in a way.
Yeah, and that's how I've always wanted my stuff to sound, like always being like a production geek and nerd, you know, when I'm listening to the, like Britney Spears records or whatever's like hot on the radio, like I always listen to that. Even when I go to the clubs, I'm like listening to the music, I'm like, damn, like I love the way the vocals sound, I love the way the drums sound, I love the way they hit you, like all the frequencies are so, like, everything's so separated and it just sits really nice, like nothing's harsh, but everything's super clear, like. So, and I've always, like, that's how I picture metal sounding, like the perfect metal mix sounding, you know, but it's so hard to do that with metal because you're taking all these, like, fast drums and, like, heavily distorted guitars and screaming and yelling. Shit that doesn't sound clean is the opposite of clean, you know, clean and smooth. And you're just trying to polish it and make it sound clean and smooth. So it's so tricky, and it's definitely a challenge to get it to sound the way it's supposed to sound.
I agree. I honestly feel like metal, the big sounding metal stuff is like the hardest stuff to mix because it's wrong. It's just arranged wrong. Like everything about it's wrong. It's all noise. It's all fast. It's all in the same frequency ranges. Like so much distortion, so much double bass, heavy guitars that are tuned down to who knows what, interfering with the bass, like screaming vocals. It's just wrong.
Bro, like metal, in a way, mixing metal is like polishing a trash can.
Totally.
I've always said that. I'm like, like, you know, but it's cool. It's not like, in a way, it totally is that, and it's it plays tricks with your mind. That's why. Huge shout out and respect to Joey Sturgis, you know, because his mixes are like, I feel like he's always had that like exactly what I'm talking about. He's always had that.
Yeah, he figured out the equation for sure.
Yeah, like he gets metal to sound like clean, like, and poppy the way it should be, you know, like. And when I say poppy, I mean just like every frequency sits the way it's supposed to, like it does in rap or like a rap or pop song. you know, but at the same time it's metal.
Yeah, but it sounds huge.
Yeah, nothing's harsh to the ears, and his mixes are really smooth. But yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, he's a boss, man.
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people used to shit talk his mixes and say that all he did was use presets or whatnot, and it's like, why don't you try to mix a metal album to sound the way his do? And now that we've done Nail the Mix for a while now, and we've done it with some of his mixes, we've gotten to hear people try to do it, and yeah, it's not so easy.
It's not so easy, huh? Yeah, no, for sure, man. Yo, I remember back in the day, like even when we were finishing Volumes mixes, like when I was finishing Volumes mixes, I'd be listening to Sturgis and I'd be like, damn, like fuck, like how is he getting this shit to? I'd just be sitting in my room like, yo, what the fuck is he doing to get this shit sound so good? Like, and I would just be going back and forth, and it's like, yeah, man, he's a man.
He's definitely a wizard. I think, like, I've been paying attention, and I think that there's definitely his EQ abilities are superior to most people. He's got an incredible ear for that, so he knows, like, he gets some very, very interesting looking curves happening.
Really?
And they always sound incredible. And he has a very, very extreme, but I guess well thought out concept of dynamics. Like he nails limiters super hard, and he's very aggressive with it, but he does it just right. And so it pushes everything to the front like that, but you combine his understanding of dynamics with his ability to EQ, everything gets pushed to the front, but in just the right balances. It's crazy. It's definitely wizard level stuff.
Yeah, man, damn. Yeah, like recently working on different styles of music that aren't metal, that are kind of like more naturally good sounding to the ear. You know, like like a female singer over like a nice piano, or like in some good drums, some, you know, working with pre-mastered samples and stuff. It's giving me a chance to kind of like step back and kind of like reevaluate EQing and compression from a different perspective, from like zero again, and kind of just focusing on just making things sound musical. And doing that for a while and then going back to metal, it's given me a great edge to kind of look at metal in a more musical way and focus more on like musical things as opposed to like the way notes resonate and the way like everything, like, I don't know, just fuck, what am I trying to say?
Well, I think that's where a lot of metal guys lose the plot in their mixes, is that they spend so much of their mental energy on the frequency balance that they forget about the music. What the best mixers have is a combination of the two. So the song still hits emotionally as much as it's well balanced.
Yeah, man. And also like as opposed to like me focusing on like, hey, how heavy can this sound, or how hard hitting can it sound? You know, we're focusing on something like that. Like, that's not really like, it's better to focus on the overall picture. Like, all right, what's this song even about? Like let's think about all the layers this song has, and how would be the most beautiful way to bring things out, as opposed to trying to be all about how heavy it could sound and how much bass it could sound, and like how fucking, you know, because naturally when you get into metal, I mean, at least for me, like, that's, you know, I just always love that part about it. But like, if you focus more on the other things, it allows,
I think it allows those parts to hit harder.
Yeah.
A good example is that tuning down or adding strings to your guitar definitely can help things sound heavy, but there's also some bands that don't tune down that low that still sound just as heavy, and it's because the music is written in a way where it's emotionally heavy, and the production, whoever produced and mixed it, knew that and captured the right spirit. And
oh yeah,
some of those bands sound just as heavy as bands that have like 17 strings on their guitar and tune 8 octaves below the bass, you know?
No, for sure, man. 8 octaves.
Yeah, you can't even hear it.
I agree, man. Yo, so much of this music shit, like, so much of recording and producing, it's so much about emotion, man, and capturing the right vibe in the studio. That's why it even boils down to your energy in the studio, man. The way you communicate with people, the way, like what type of energy you bring to people, because at the end of the day, you're capturing a performance from someone. You know, so that's a performance in every aspect of the word. You want to like encourage the right like emotion and energy from the people you're recording, and that's the most important part. If you get that right, then you don't have to spend all this time like wondering like why something doesn't sound good, or you know, it's just the way everything's captured, in my opinion, and especially when it comes to recording vocals and writing songs, like, which is something when I was doing a lot of metal, I didn't really or focusing on a lot of metal, I didn't really like. It's easy to pass that because you're doing a lot of guitars and editing guitars and chopping stuff up, but when I started doing more vocal editing vocal engineering and producing, that's just something that I noticed, and I started paying more attention to. And now going back to the metal world, I made sure to pay attention to that when I was recording the guitars for the new Volumes album. When I was writing the songs, I focused a lot on the emotional aspect of the music.
Well, is case in point like the Broccoli session that you were talking about, where you guys nailed it in 20 minutes?
Dude, yeah, I mean the whole song, I guess alright, so most of the song was written in 20 minutes. Like my buddy my buddy J Gram was he was the producer, and along with my buddy Roger Shahayed, and Roger's a keyboard player, so Roger started playing some things on the keys, and J Gram told them, like, he saw him playing something, and he was like, yo, keep playing that. And so we recorded it in, and then J Gram programmed some drums real quick. We recorded it into Pro Tools, and then Drum listened to it, and he was like, all right, I think I got a hook, all right, put me, start recording me. So I recorded him over the hook and over the beat, and he just improvised the hook. And it was all so quick. But hold on, I'm fucking getting distracted. What did you just ask me? Because I just went off.
No, I was asking. I want to hear about the Broccoli session, anyways. So, but we were talking about how one of the things that you learn from other music is just letting things be musical, and by letting things be musical and focusing on the beauty of it all, you don't have to spend forever worrying about how it sounds and all these dumb technical things. And you said that the Broccoli session was so quick. I feel like that's a perfect example.
Oh yeah, especially with that whole realm of music, it's so based on like what you're feeling at the time, you know. And it's like that song was based on Drum feeling happy and smoking some weed. He was smoking a joint while and he's thinking about, oh, what should I write about this? Oh, these girls always try to smoke my weed. All right, I'm gonna write. He's just like a happy dude, and he just went in the booth and recorded some shit about girls smoking his weed, and boom, like that was it. But like I think the reason the song came out so good, was so successful, because the vibe in the room was right. Everything was good. Like everyone was on point. And, shout out to J Gram and Roger. They're, great producers.
I feel like in metal, it's hard to get those vibes sometimes because everything is so cut up, and so, like, I guess sectioned, like, and riffs are built. But that's why if you're working with artists that are really good and everyone's really good at what they do, you can have moments like that.
Yeah, so, man, that's honestly, I feel like with these bigger sessions, like these bigger songs, like you just have a group of 5 motherfuckers who know what the hell they're doing. Everyone in that room knows what they're doing, and when you have that, it's just another level of workflow. So
there's totally some mastery involved.
Like, working with animals as leaders, like a couple of years ago, that's a perfect example of that happening in metal. Like all those dudes are just really gnarly at what they do, and they like, Tosin and Javier Tosin, Javier and Matt have a really good vision as to what they want their songs to sound like, and they're all really proficient. We're not spending a lot. We didn't spend time like focusing on bullshit. It was just all like everyone just kind of got the workflow, and
I love it when it works that way.
Yeah, man, like everything was just really easy going, and every time someone has something to say, it's productive. Obviously we're not spending time getting like crazy takes, because Tosin and Javier are so good at guitar, but I feel like that's like the best music is made that way. That's why it's harder with some of these bands, because you're like, or these smaller bands, because they might have 1 or 2 really good dudes, and then the rest, if someone's in the room room that isn't up to par, and but then still stops the session or stops things to say stuff like.
Yeah.
I hate to be that guy, but it's just like I've just from experience, I've seen it work one way. I've seen it work with Broccoli. I've seen it work with Animals as leaders. Like,
I mean, you just gotta be a bastard.
Yeah, man, you just gotta be fucking good at what you do, man. You gotta take this shit seriously. It's a career. Like, you know, this is your career. Like, you want to be proficient at what you do. You want to be good. But yeah, I love surrounding myself with people that, like I said, I think are better than me.
It makes a huge difference. So I'm wondering. So I want to ask you a little about Juan Gabriel, because getting a Grammy for that's no small thing. And I was wondering, what was it like, first of all, working with your dad on that?
Man, it was an honor. All right, so he started doing, Juan Gabriel, right before he passed away, the last couple albums, like, rest in peace, he just passed away 6 months. It's been a hard time for all of us, you know?
Can imagine.
He released a couple albums where he was, the last albums he released, he was re-releasing and re-recording his songs and having my dad kind of reproduce them. But he would team up with, like, another artist. Like, he would get, like, a feature on the song to help to sing the song with him, you know? And have, like, these artists do, like, maybe even write a new verse in the song or re-sing one of the hooks or whatever it is. It's a duet. He was doing duets with artists. So on the first one, we got a bunch of cool artists, and we got Fifth Harmony on one. And like I said, since I've always been heavily into, you know, doing pop or hip hop or whatever, and I'm going out there. I'm always, like, current with music and what's coming out. My dad had come to me and asked me if I could mix and produce the Fifth Harmony duet with Juan Gabriel. So I took the song and we worked on it, and I got Brandon involved too, my buddy Brandon Paddock, who co-produces Volumes with me, and we did the song, and it came out great. And it was like an EDM version. It was like a dance song. So, you know, I pulled up, you know, kick samples from Vengeance and, like,
nice,
you know, clap samples or whatever, and referenced it to, like, you know, whatever was on the radio at that time. And we did a good job, and I think I also did one other track on that one. But at the end of the day, when everything came out, like, those tracks did really well. So on the second time around, the single for the album was this. It was called La Frontera, and it was an old song Juan Gabriel had released in the 80s, and we got this guy named J Balvin to rap on it. He's like the Drake of, like, reggaeton. So that being said, my dad knows I'm going to clubs, I'm listening to radio, and, like, you know, I did a good job on the last one. And so he came to me, he's like, Diego, you know, you kind of know about this style of music better than me. You're more in tune with what's going out. And obviously, like, through the years, him hearing my work with Volumes and doing all this stuff, like all these bands I produced and all these artists I've been producing, he's obviously developed a trust. Like, yo, I trust you. This is a huge project. Like, you know, see if you can bang out that reggaeton part for J Balvin to rap over. And I called my buddy DJ OK, who's like a well-known DJ, and I had him send me over some reggaeton samples, layered them in, finished the song, and I sent it to my dad, and he sent it out to Juan Gabriel. And he sent it out to J Balvin, and they heard it, and they liked it. They liked my work. So they approved it, and that was that, man. And we finished that song up, and then he came to me and asked me to do 2 more songs. One with this artist named Wisin, and one with another one called Paulina Rubio. So the one with Wisin was a total dance remix, and I ended up just, like, doing the whole thing. I mixed and produced.
Just worked out that way.
Yeah, I mixed and produced the whole song. But with the Wisin one, we also had other people turn in mixes. So, and they didn't tell Juan Gabriel or anyone, like, oh, this is Diego's mix or this. He just got 3 or 4 mixes, and they chose mine.
How did that feel?
Incredible, man. I was really excited. I put in a lot of work, and I can't even believe we won the Grammy, bro. Like, that shit is just crazy.
Seriously.
It's crazy. We won Album of the Year and fucking we won Best Regional Album, but that's the story behind that. So even with the Juan Gabriel stuff, you know, even with my dad trusting me with all the work and everything, like, I still was up against other people, so I feel really blessed that they chose my mix, and I was able to be part of such a legendary project. You know, it was kind of like a biggest thing I've ever worked on.
Yeah, man, it's huge. So I'm wondering, did you have to get into different headspace to record that stuff and to mix that stuff? I guess a different headspace than what you do with, say, Volumes, or do a lot of the same principles and techniques work across the genre gap for you?
I definitely had to get in a different headspace because you're working with clean sounding stuff like with EDM music. The samples are pre-mastered. It's like with metal, when you're miking up drums, you're spending all this time trying to EQ a snare, trying to EQ a kick, just getting raw samples to sound good. Whereas with this stuff, it's kind of like you're not really worried about that. It's like you choose the samples that sound good enough. And if the sample doesn't sound good enough and you have to spend time EQing it, it's probably not, or like drastically EQing it, it's probably not the right sample. So like I said, going back to the musical aspect of everything, like this is where I'm really just focusing on the music, like how good do the vocals.
So it's more vocal oriented, and it sounds like it's more about the big picture than about the small details, because the small details sound like they're provided in a way.
I just chose like really good samples. I didn't spend time like mixing, I'm EQing and compressing the samples. They just sounded good from the get-go. I kind of focused all my energy on synth work, finding cool like synths Nexus 2, Vanguard, getting that stuff to sound like really wide and open, and vocal mixing like delays, reverb, and also structuring the song well. Like honestly, like a major key to that was like, all right, where do we put the drops? Where are we going to build the song up? Like that's a huge part of it too, like getting all that right and making sure the song feels right. And it's like you got to kind of picture yourself like, all right, you're in a club dancing, like what do you want to hear? What's gonna make people dance? So it's 100% different mentality. With metal, it's like you're just kind of, when I write for Volumes, I'm picturing like, all right, I'm in front of a whole crowd, I'm playing with my band, what's gonna get this crowd like going? With this stuff, it's kind of like, all right, I'm in the club, what's gonna sound good in the club? So with me, I just kind of live through, I use like real life experiences to guide me.
That makes sense. Well, I guess you're getting a different reaction out of the crowd. I guess in one case they're dancing, and in the other case they're slamming into each other. But I mean, it sounds to me like it's the same goal in the end, which is to ignite them emotionally enough to where they start moving their bodies.
Yeah, I think that's the name of the game with EDM, and that's something I want to dive in to start doing more. With one of the 3 tracks I worked on the Juan Gabriel record, I had, like I said, I mentioned my buddy DJ OK, I had him come by, and I learned a lot of stuff from him because he just does EDM stuff, and he's like well established in the EDM world, but kind of seeing like how he like would stop the song and be like, all right, let's put a drop here, and then like, all right, let's choose these samples, and just see him do his thing. Like I said, I always learned so much from working with people. So doing that track, and then I actually had collabed on another track on the first Juan Gabriel record with DJ OK, and I saw him work, and I saw him come in, and he's like, all right, let's try using these samples. And I paid attention to what type of samples he was using, like how they hit, like how much bass they had, or whatever, how they sounded. So I kind of used that to kind of guide me with the We Seen remix that I did on the Los Duo Dos. That helped me learn about this style a lot.
Makes sense. So in your experience, is the world of Latin music production or just Latin music much different than the world of American music? And can you give any insights into why or how?
Yes, it's definitely way different. I mean, I'd say, radio music is all the same. Like American radio music, Latin radio music, like you're just trying to get people to dance. But when it comes to doing radio or dance Latin music and metal, those two are very different. With Volumes, I'm writing for people to mosh to. I'm picturing myself on stage. Whereas with the Juan Gabriel stuff, I'm kind of picturing myself at a club. Like, what would I want to hear? What's gonna get girls dancing? Like, you're writing music for people to dance to. Not to mosh to. So the whole vibe is different. The whole aesthetic of the song and genre is just different. And you're obviously writing music for a different crowd of people.
So, but besides that, then it sounds like for you on your end, working on Latin music isn't that different than working on like American pop or anything, or American dance music?
It's they have similarities. You know, I guess Latin music is based on, like, you have ranchero, you have reggaeton, you know, and then you have a bunch of different types of you have cumbia, a bunch of different types of Latin music. So at the end of the day, in my opinion, like, the way I see it is, you're just trying to get people to dance, and, like, all right, if you're doing an American dance song, you're taking more influence from, like, R&B and, like, and hip hop. Whereas with a Latin song, it's like you still want to get that same effect, but you want to use these aspects of Latin music, you know, of reggaeton or whatever it is, you know, but you're still trying to get the people to do the same thing.
Yep.
With American radio music and Latin radio music, they're similar. You know, it's definitely there's a bigger difference between American metal music and American radio music than there is between American radio music and Latin radio music.
Makes sense. Different
cultures revolve around different styles of music, and you're drawing influence from these different cultures. At the end of the day, you're getting people to dance. These songs are going to be played in clubs. You kind of want to write these for that environment.
So you just know what I guess the thing that is in common and between all the styles is that you know what effect you want to have on your audience before you even start.
Yeah, you know, it's like that's with any musical job. You know, if you're writing for a commercial, like, you gotta, like, see the commercial and see, like, what the commercial is about and kind of fit into the type of vibe. You know, if you're doing a car commercial, like, you might want to add some rock and roll guitar in there and, like, a cool guitar solo. You know, if you're doing like a prescription drug commercial like Zoloft or something, you probably want to write, like, really soothing and comfortable and like music, you know, something that makes someone feel, you know, safe.
Yeah.
As they read all the side effects. Might cause death, might cause whatever the fuck. But yeah, I mean, with dance music, you want people to dance to it. So
perfect. So, all right, so we have a question from Jamel Banner, which is, can you discuss your hip-hop production / beat-making styles some?
Yes, sir. So with hip-hop, man, and any radio genre to begin with, it's all about pre-mastered samples. If you get the right samples, like, it's the make it or break it. You know, you could have a great song, but that's how I work, because I'm such a, like, nerdy producer, like, engineer. Like, I want my shit to sound like. That's why I even started recording in the first place. I want my shit to sound really good. So that being said, with hip hop, once I spent the right time and allotted and found the right samples off of working with other people or doing sessions, getting stems, mixing stems, taking kicks from stems I was mixing, and buying packs online. I gathered, like, a collection of the right samples that I like. And now when I make a hip hop beat, I just pull up the folder and I drag and drop, and I don't have to mix anything. I don't have to EQ kicks or snares, nothing. You just kind of have to level everything out volume-wise. And with that being said, I've learned a lot from this guy, Jay Graham, who I've been working with. I've been engineering for him, and he produced the Broccoli joint. So seeing him work in the studio and kind of how he does stuff, I had already been doing things a certain way, but watching him work kind of reassured me, all right, here's an established producer in this realm working with these big artists, and he works that way too. He's got everything set, like, his samples knock off the top. He's not spending time EQing, like, or really fucking with like kicks and snares. Obviously he still EQs, like, stuff and we distort the 808s and whatnot, but it's not what I'm saying is I'm used to metal, you know, where it's like you're really spending time hammering those drums and getting them to sound right. Like, with this, it's if you're gonna EQ or do something, it's something very subtle. Like, if you have a lot of bass, if you have your 808s knocking and your hi-hats are going fast, you might want to roll off a little bit of the low end on the hi-hats so that they don't, like, make your 808 wobble, or like so that they don't conflict.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, with that's the take I take. That's my take on making hip hop beats, working with pre-mastered samples, and also finding really cool synths. You know, there's a lot of really cool synths that sound good right off the bat. Nexus 2, Electra X, you have Purity. Those are all, like, more hip hop synths. You have Vanguard, you have Silence, Omnisphere. Like, there's just, the list is endless. So working with really good synths too is really inspiring. You know, if you open up a cool synth and it has good patches from the get-go, it's inspiring. You know, you just hit a note and it's like, oh, whoa, like, this is cool, and it just kind of, like, I don't know, it's easier for you to envision a song once you hear a note or I mean a sound or whatever.
That was actually kind of the next question from Jack Hartley, which was, what are some of your favorite soft synths and plugins for ear candy and additional production?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, all the ones I just mentioned were really good. Contact has really good ones, you know, if you buy Complete 10, it comes with a shitload of libraries. So you have like Evolve Mutations, you have like Action Strings. You know, Trillion is really good for bass.
Trillion's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like unless I have a really amazing bass, I use Trillion because it's just not worth it. With record. Oh, that's one thing I just want to say. Like, yo, when you record bass, like, it's all about how good the bass is, because like once you record with a really good bass, you realize like, oh shit, you just gotta plug it in, and then maybe throw a little bit of an EQ and a compressor, like if anything. But if it doesn't sound really good when you plug it in, like, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I think not only the bass, but the person playing it.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Especially with finger basses, like it's a huge aspect of bass.
So here is one from Rodney Altenbaugh, which is, how did you get into the composing side of things for artists?
Well, initially, the only reason I even started recording was because I was writing my own stuff, and I wanted a way to like remember it and not forget what I was doing. So, but what happened was I started recording, and then I'd go listen. Like when I first started recording, I remember As Lay Dying had just released Shadows Are Security, and so I started recording stuff, and that album came out along with a couple other albums like Miasma, Black Dahlia Murder, and of Despised Icon or whatever. But I remember just hearing those albums, I was like, damn, like, yo, I need to get my stuff to sound like if I could record something and it sounded this sick, like it would just be the coolest thing that could ever happen to me in my whole entire life. So I kind of made it like my life goal to somehow get what I was recording to sound that good, to sound like an album. And then that's how it all started, and then that just led me onto so many other things. So, but what I'm saying is that I started, I was composing stuff, and that's how I even got into recording. So I guess naturally I've always been a composer, and I guess everything else came secondary to me, even though at certain points in certain projects I've been involved in, I haven't been like the main composer. I've been more of like a producer or a mixer or whatever it is. But initially, that's what it is. So that's where I started. So it always revolves. I mean, it always comes back to that at the end of the day.
So you were a writer first.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense that your writing skills will be utilized and exploited by the people you work with. And that's something that I've noticed. But a lot of the producers I know who end up writing on people's records or songwriters to begin with. Like, they write music. They enjoy writing music. It's not, and so it's just a natural thing, because when people work with them, they have ideas to share, and the artists like their ideas because they're good at it. So I think that people who want to do that more, they just need to write more music and get good at it and just make that a thing you do. Like, if you want to write music for artists, first start writing for yourself all the time and just get good at writing, so that when you are working with artists, your writing chops are, let's just say, are developed so that you can give them good ideas.
I mean, yeah, man, like if you're working with an artist, like if you can't even write for yourself, what are you gonna offer them, you know? Because that's why, and this is something I want to say, because I experience things from both sides. I'm an artist and I'm a producer, so I've been in the situation where I'm the artist in the room, and I've been in a situation where I'm the producer. And the artist comes first, man. Like, I see a lot of producers kind of like, maybe even in hip-hop or other realms, like they kind of like value themselves more than the artist, or they kind of have this like stigma to where like they think they're more important than the artist, so therefore they kind of do things, they put themselves first in a kind of like in a weird like controlling way, you know? And it's like, first off, if you're a producer and you feel that way about an artist, you shouldn't even be working with them. You should be working with people that you respect, you know? And if you don't, then, you know, I don't even know why you're working with them. But, going back to the question. Yeah, it's always important for the producer. So when you're a producer, like, all you're doing is you're offering your talents to the artist, you know? So however they want to utilize your talents, like you help them out. So that's what I like doing when I'm a producer. Like when I'm working with an artist, it's like, all right, like they have the vision, and you know, any way I can help them get there, or I can help fill in the blank spots of their vision that they haven't figured it out yet. Like that's how I like helping them, and I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, artists are grateful for that, you know?
That's how I've always approached it and how I've always seen it work. And then the thing is that once you do that enough, then you might develop a reputation as a writer. And if you get repeat business, if you wrote for them the first time by just doing it as part of your production services, you might get asked to help. And if you get the word gets around, like a dude like Drew Falk, for instance, who mainly just writes, but he also produces, like people talk, and that's how you get this work. But originally it just starts as you filling in the blanks for people.
Exactly. So, you know, you fill in the blanks, and then people start realizing like, oh damn, this dude's like really good at this, like, and then they talk about you, and they you know, like, and they let it be known. So with that being said, like, yo, like your reputation, your word of mouth, like it goes a long way. If you're like, it's always, you gotta be like a good person, good friend, good you know, like aside from being talented, it's important to have good morals, you know, so that people want to come back and work with you. You know, even if you're really good at what you do, like if you kind of like piss the people you're working with off, like it's just kind of like common sense, like who's gonna want to work with someone who they don't like, you know, like, so it's just way more beneficial to your talents to always just sociable person, man, you know, and keep good morals.
Yeah, and approach it from a standpoint of how can you help.
Yeah. For sure. You know, and one thing, the thing is, every artist wants something different, man. Like an artist could come to you and be like, hey man, can you just write this for me? In which that case, all right, cool, all right, this is what I'm asked to do, and then you go in and do it, you know. And every artist kind of wants something different. And then, but I think as a producer, when I'm brought in as a producer, that's the first thing I do. I'm like, all right, what is this artist, what does he want from me, you know? And then along the road, you might find out that he wants things he didn't even know he wanted from you, or he or she wanted from you. So I love producing, and I love helping the artists out, you know. And I think being my own artist in a way has taught me how to produce, because it's helped me put myself in their shoes and been like, like, yo, if I was doing Volumes, like, what would I want a producer to come in and help with? Or even though I'm also like, obviously like heavily involved with producing with Volumes too, but I like having someone else to come in and help me sort out my ideas or whatever, and kind of bounce ideas off of. And also learn. I learn so much when I work with people.
Makes sense. So here's a question from Dalmun, which is, how was the process like for composing Physical Education with animals as leaders?
It was sick.
Good answer.
We were in my room, and Tosin and Javier had been, they came over to write, and Tosin brought a guitar, and he plugged in, and he's like, yo, Diego, I got a cool riff. And it was that first riff. So we ended up recording that, and then Tosin had a couple other riffs. And what we did is we recorded them separately. And then we ended up piecing them together, and I just programmed a lot of the drums. And, when we were writing, I programmed all the drums. Obviously, Matt Garskill went in, and he, like, being the beast he is, like, made them super, super sick. But initially, me, Tosin, and Javier put the song together, and we structured it, and then Javier wrote that, which to me, that part of the song, that's kind of like the vocal line, you know? That's kind of like the hook. So it is the hook. So that was really fun, and that was another situation where everyone kind of knew what the hell they were doing, and it was really the song just came out, man. It kind of like wrote it. You know, there was no like forcing. We didn't have to like restructure stuff. We didn't have to go back and like I did a lot of the synth work, and I helped compose like one of the leads. And then I composed a lot of the drums. But it was a wonderful experience working with those two, and I learned so much. And at the time, I was so, like, Javier is just such a good guy. You know, Javier and Tosin are such good guys, because, like, they saw me do the Volume stuff, and they saw me do the production for that, and they were, like, off the bat, they were like, yo, we should do some shit. And, you know, I had been taking lessons from Tosin, and I really looked up to them. I still do. And it was just such a like honor for me to be able to work with such talented musicians and have them show respect back and want to collaborate and create something so cool. So I definitely I learned a lot.
Man, it's always awesome when you can work with people that you admire and they're also cool and they treat you with respect. It's like, yeah, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, man. It was definitely an incredible experience. I love to work with them again.
Awesome. Well, Diego, I'm going to end the podcast now. Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing so much with our crowd. You've been an awesome guest, and I can't wait to hear the new Volumes, and maybe we can have Kyle Black come back on Nail the Mix and do a Volumes track.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you so much.
This episode of the Unstoppable Recording Machine Podcast is brought to you by Joey Sturgis Tones, creating unique audio tools for musicians and producers everywhere. Unleash your creativity with Joey Sturgis Tones. Visit joeysturgistones.com for more info. To ask us questions, make suggestions, and interact, visit urm.academy/podcast and subscribe today.